And it's show time today. Welcome, everybody. We've got our Homestead Happenings update, and I'm excited about today's live stream. I'm hoping y'all have lots of questions for me. Just if you do, put them in the comments in all caps. I'll say that again though, because I realized that when we start the live stream, like the first 30 seconds, most people don't see it. I can tell that because I see you guys commenting to each other in advance. And then I see nobody in the live stream for like the first 30 to 45 seconds. And then all of a sudden you're all there. So what I think's happening, I haven't figured out how to like really dial in the advertising thing on YouTube because I make a little bit of money on advertising. I don't actually count on that money, but I mean, don't hate money, right? And I think it keeps you from seeing the actual initial part of a live stream. So I don't know if I like have to dial that in or like start the live stream, then turn on monetization after you're here. I don't know. It's all part of the trick. And often I forget to even turn that on. I think my mic's pointed the wrong way. Anyway, so today we're going to do a recording of the Homestead Happenings. I hope you guys have lots of questions this week and are ready to put them in all caps. That's how you get your questions in. I will go through that. Holler Neighbors can come on at the end and we can do any Q&A sessions you want. It'll go as long as you are here. I have an appointment at 12. So if we get close to the appointment at 12, I'll sign off. But other than that, it's going to be a fun episode today. It's our Homestead Happenings update. I was actually wondering today, do you guys like these Homestead Happenings updates shows? I've been doing them every Friday for a while. And sometimes I feel like, well, we're going through the same things. And sometimes we're saying the same things every week, week after week after week. So I don't know, like, are you liking it? Are you not liking it? Let me know in the comments. I drink my coffee. I have my smiley mug today because I'm trying to convince myself to be happy. This is the mug I use when I wake up and I feel a little under the weather. Happy cat face. That's what I do. Steve likes them. That's good. Wonder if we're doing game night again this week. How the tooth is. I still have a tooth that needs a root canal and it hurts like a mother. But I did take a Tylenol right before this show, so I can make it through. Last night when I did the live stream, I started talking, and all of a sudden, so what happens when you have a tooth that it's going bad is it hurts. And then every so often, it just bumps up another scale of hurt. And I was like starting to talk, and you'll see it on the live stream because like I lose my train of thought right at the beginning. And what happened is the tooth turned on. It went like from medium to high. And then I was like typing on Telegram while somebody else was talking, like, bring me something right now or I'm going to die. So anyway, I'm really freaking frustrated with the situation because in the old days when you had something like this happen, what they would do is they would make time to go in there and pull the tooth or whatever needed to be done. And you could usually get that done in a day or two. What happened to me in this one is 2 weeks ago, I said it hurts. And they were like, yeah, it hurts, but it'll get better. And then I went out of town. And while I was out of town, I'm like, I think it hurts. And like when I told them, I was like, it's an electric feeling, which is nerve pain, which means we have a problem, right? And then I come back and I call and I'm like, it really hurts. We really need to do something. And they said, we can't see you till Thursday. And at that point, I'm like, it's clear to me I need a root canal or an extraction. And I felt like they didn't hear me 2 weeks ago when I said it hurt. And then when I really said it hurt on Monday, I don't think they heard me. And then I get in there and they're expecting I have a bite issue, adjustment issue. And I get in there and they're like, oh, you mean it hurts? And I'm like, okay, so like when it just hurts a little bit and I need an adjustment, I can go 6 months before I bother to get my butt in there because it doesn't hurt that bad. When I say something hurts, it like actually hurts. And it's like probably an 8 out of 10 at this point by the time I've admitted it to you. Sometimes I get there at 6 out of 10, but it's not like a 1 out of 10 annoyance. And so I was like, okay. So I told him straight up, I was like, I feel like you didn't hear me 2 weeks ago when I said this hurt. And so now I'm really frustrated because you still can't get I thought I was coming in for a root canal today or a tooth extraction. And you can't get me in until God knows when, and it hurts. And then I'm allergic to most pain pills. So like Tylenol I can take. I think that's the only one. So Otherwise, like the right half of my face actually paralyzes. It's a really weird reaction, but that's what happens. So anyway, really frustrated because I've had a relationship with this dentist. So I just told him straight up. And then they sent me like the post-event like survey form, right? And I looked at that. I'm like, I'm not filling it out because I feel like it's important to give negative feedback directly, clearly, and if you can in person, and if not, like do the best you can do. And I had already done that. And so what I don't need to do is give them a quote unquote bad review that goes into their marketing department. And then all of this action has to be taken. I'm like, because from the moment I told them, I said, I feel like you didn't hear me when I told you it was in pain 2 weeks ago. Their entire demeanor changed. They found a spot for me Monday. And they were like, we will call you. In fact, I have my phone right here. We will call you if there is an opening on Friday at the last minute. Because like literally it hurts so bad. I will leave this live stream in the middle of the live stream and go get it done. They haven't texted me yet. So, and they probably won't. But at this point, I'm looking for a new dentist because I feel like the dentist, I like the work they've done. I don't like the fact that you can't schedule things. And so now I'm looking for a new dentist. And one who has a way to work people in an urgent situation same day or next day, because it's, it's actually no fun. And they're like, we can prescribe you pain pills. I'm like, yeah, but I can't take Vicodin. And what you prescribe is Vicodin or ibuprofen. Not helpful. Not helpful. Anyway, that's my rant. I don't usually rant about personal stuff, but it's just like, I'm letting this one get to me a little bit. In the interim, though, I've learned some really. So this is totally off topic, but you guys joined the live stream. You know it is. Hi, tag. I've learned a lot about dealing with pain from a psychological standpoint because I've had little painy things throughout my life, but mostly not had a lot of pain. And what I called a friend who has a lot of nerve pain all the time, and I said, "What do you do?" Because the scale of pain pills that person would need to take. She would need to take enough that makes her mind not sharp. And then she has a job where she wants her mind to stay sharp. So she chooses not to take pain pills most of the time. And then I'm allergic to the pain pills she would take, basically, that would help. So I can't take them. I can take Tylenol. And she said, what I do is I readjust my normal. And so this is really interesting. So I've been doing that as well. Like when it suddenly dials up, it hits me and I'm kind of a baby about it. But once I'm there, I'm like, okay, it dialed up. And then I tell myself, this is normal. Nothing is hurt. This is your new normal. I don't mean it in the sense that we all hate that term, but this is your new normal of pain. Now go on with life. And so there's like part of my narrative to myself is this is normal, because if you think about what your pain feedback loop is for, is you're hurt and you need to do something to fix that, or you need to stop doing something to fix that, right? Well, I can't do anything right now. So my new normal, what happens when that happens, it's like a volume button goes down a bit. So it doesn't go away completely, but it's like it does give me some relief. And I thought that was really interesting. And I wanted to talk to you guys about that today, just because it's amazing what our minds can do over our bodies to help just dial back chronic pain. And it's a very good lesson for me. And I think, if you are somebody who has pain all the time, like bad joints or something, it doesn't fix it all the way. It's not like mind over matter and I don't feel any pain at all, but it turns down the volume when you're able to put that mental energy there. Caveat, that mental energy going there, it's not going somewhere else. And so what I've also found is I'm more tired by the end of the day. So I'm doing a little bit less. So yeah. And Faith, I don't know if I'm allergic to that or not. When I told them the suite of drugs I was allergic to, they were like, oh, you can't take all of these. I think I can do codeine, but I mean, they don't prescribe codeine. And I'm not sure what that would do to I actually need my brain to work too, because we got Self-Reliance Festival coming and we've got a few hundred more tickets I'd like to sell between now and then. So get your tickets, guys, so I don't have to sell them anymore. Let's sell out. Woo! Anyway, okay, so we're going to do the homestead update. What I'm going to do today is, like I do every day, a 5-second pause. We'll start the podcast. We will do the podcast. And I'm going to play with some StreamYard tools a little bit today. So if I flub up, you'll see me flub up and you can just laugh at me. I mean, laugh with me. And then we'll do the podcast, and then I will star any of your questions. Please put them in all caps or the first couple words in all caps. I'll star them. I may not read them as I'm going. And then we will do questions and answers at the end. I've sent the link to Steve, Holler Neighbor. Jenny is working today, and Tactical said it's too cold outside for him to join from outside. So he's probably going to come lurk over here somewhere for any of that. So yeah, 10% pain relief visit. So that's what we're going to do. If you're new to the channel and think I'm a spaz but want to follow me anyway, hit that subscribe button. And guys, like this video so we can get the algorithms going. Let your friends know we're live, because we're going to rock it this year by bringing more people into the community and helping each other out. With that, I'm going to get started. Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, February 3rd, 2022, and this is episode 694 of Living Free in Tennessee, and it's a Homestead Happenings day today. So we're going to talk about what's going on the homestead, and I can say that things are a little slow because it's not spring yet, but it's really getting close to spring. We are going to talk about some new life on the homestead. We have babies, again, eggs, spring planting, old stuff, and some other things that have been coming up. Before we do that, I do want to talk about today's featured event. The featured event today is Next Steps. Next Steps is an attempt to set up an alternative community / a counter economy of people who opt out of our system, and we help each other. We do business with each other. We have healthcare providers for each other. We learn how to provide food for each other, all of those things. And it is in Lanier Island, Georgia, which is near Atlanta, February 22nd through 24th. Tag from Life Done Free, who's in the live stream, is going to speak there. I get to speak with a couple of homesteaders who I've never met in person before. One of them said she saw me from afar at Self-Reliance Festival. And I'm really excited to get to know these two new homesteaders to my network. One of them lived in a van for a while and is now building her off-grid homestead. The other one has a permaculture business, and they also sell soil, which is pretty darn cool. Really excited. And they're more of an urban / suburban homesteader. So we're following the whole gamut. That's at next-steps.info. Use coupon code SAUCE10 to get a 10% discount if you're going to be there. I'm going to be talking about smart homesteading, not using technology, although that does come up. You should use the technology that makes your life easier. But in terms of how you plan it, what the homestead mindset is, and how you can use that anywhere you are, whether you're in the city, in the suburbs, in the country, to get some value from the homestead you create around you. Because your home, no matter where you are, can be turned into a homestead. I'm taking a little bit of a different approach than I usually do this time. I will have a worksheet for participants to work through to make their own homestead plan start while they're doing it. Howdy, Sue. Thanks for saying I look nice. I lost my lipstick, so I'm wearing a different color, guys, because my house needs me to spend 3 hours cleaning it today. And it's on my 3 things list. If you were on social today, it was like organize the seed area. That's actually going to expand to 3 hours of organizing everything, because I've been sort of, with all the stuff going on, I've been a little bit non-disciplined about putting things back in their place. And so now I can't find anything, including my lipstick, which is kind of funny. But I have 2 other lipsticks, so those are what are on today. I always mix these 2 colors. I have a really red one and a pink one. And if I wear the really red one, it's like I'm going out or something to dinner, to fancy dinner. It's kind of that kind of a shade. So I kind of tone it down with the pink for morning lipstick. Anyway, so thanks for that, Sue. Totally off topic, right? This is what happens when we record live. Next up, I do want to thank today's show sponsor, and that's the Homestead Consultant. This is what Ryan Steva, the Homestead Consultant, has to say to us. In today's chaotic world, there's a major disconnect between our land, our food, and our community. At the Homestead Consultant, we believe the solution to bridging these gaps starts with the individual home. This is why Ryan Steva and I get along. By taking practical steps towards food production, land restoration, independent education, and rational preparedness, we can begin to restore these disconnects. This is where the homestead consultant comes in. We work closely with you to evaluate your property, your unique goals, vision, and resources. Using this restorative permaculture lens, we help you design a holistic, actionable game plan to help make your homesteading dreams a reality. Our desire is to see all of our clients become more connected and resilient. Find out more about our services by visiting our website, thehomesteadconsultant.com. And if you are an LFTN listener, he will give you a free phone consultation. All you got to do is either go to his website and fill out the contact form, thehomesteadconsultant.com, or email him, thehomesteadconsultant@gmail.com, with LFT consult in the subject line so he can get right back to you. Thank you so much, Ryan, for sponsoring today's show. With that, we're going to move into our first segment of today's show, and that is Featured Forage. This is where we talk about what we're finding on the land. And right now, we're not finding a lot. Up until about now, I was saying, okay, you can dig up the roots and eat the roots, right? You've got the Jerusalem artichokes, you've got the daylily roots, you've got dandelion tubers. Dandelion tubers are still good. What's happening now is that those other plants are starting to put energy into pushing up through the soil. And what will happen to their roots over time is they're like bulbs right now, right? And if you've ever cut like a garlic bulb, it's solid in the middle. What happens with the tubers is they get hollow in the middle as they put energy into the plant. So they're starting to transition to putting energy in the plant in Tennessee. You can still eat the roots, but you may find some that are a little soft or a little hollow right now. And so, and what I want is for these to propagate themselves again. So I kind of leave them alone right now. Now is a really good time to plant your asparagus, by the way. In case you don't know, go get your asparagus roots, put them in the ground. My asparagus does terribly every year, and it's my fault. One day I will actually get around to moving those to a different location. I planted them in the wrong place, but when I moved here 15 years ago, I still had sort of Oregon mindset on how you plan where things go. And Oregon does not get the level of heat or sun that Tennessee does. And so a lot of my stuff I did that first year was just wrong. And a lot of that's in my homesteading, like smart homesteading presentation at Next Steps. It's just about all the stuff I did wrong. None of it was catastrophic, but it did delay my ability to get production off my land in the long term. As I said last week, the grass is starting to grow back. The sheep are really happy about that. And we're starting to see like baby chickweed. So early spring plants are coming. It's funny because I told somebody like, it's spring, it's early spring, it's time for early spring stuff. And they're like, it's not spring yet, Nicole. I'm like, yeah, because you're in Wisconsin. But here we're starting to get, because spring is on a calendar on a certain date. But depending where you live, the changing of the seasons is more about what the land is doing. And here, spring starts before spring, and summer often starts before summer, and fall starts a little later, right? And winter's short. Now, of course, we just had an ice storm go through Tennessee. So you're like, why is that spring? Well, because I've got chickweed growing. And so I tend to just sort of observe that based on what's growing up here. And because it's Tennessee, like we'll get waves of cold, plants will die as a result of this, but the season is coming and it is time to be really busy. And homesteaders in the spring are usually really busy because all of a sudden you got increased egg production, you've got plants to get out there, you've got garden beds to do, your animals are giving birth. Like there's all this stuff that happens all the time. And Life Done Free says the parallel society should be at the front of everybody's mind. Yeah, we are the parallel society. All we got to do is do business with each other, make strong relationships with each other, and find solutions together. 3 things. Those are our 3 things. Those are our big picture 3 things, guys. Anyway, next up, we'll talk about livestock on the homestead. And we have babies again. We have baby little rabbits. I may have said it last week. I don't remember because I can't remember if they were born Friday or Saturday. They may have been just born. So they were just born, and I may not have known it on the live stream, but I definitely knew it by the end of the day Friday. And what happens when rabbits are born is I stay away for a little while because I don't want the mom to turn on her babies. Like, our goal with the rabbits is to grow them for meat. And so I looked in there a couple days later and I saw cute little rabbit butts like all in the bottom of the nest. So there were at least 3. There are probably more than 3. Again, I didn't dig through too much. I'm just letting mom do her job and take care of her own little baby bunnies. And I don't want to, like, she has the nest all super fluffy with fur she pulls out to keep them nice and warm. And it's really warm in there. And if I compact that, it's not as warm. So I just stay away. If it's warm enough this weekend, I will probably see if I can see how many there are, see if sometimes one or another one doesn't make it, and like get the dead body out of there if there's a little baby that didn't make it. I didn't see any of that when I just kind of felt under there and everybody was warm and moving and there wasn't a cold one that wasn't moving. So that's what I'll do probably Saturday or Sunday. Probably Sunday because it's super cold here and I just really want them to have the best chance at making it through. Eggs are back. If you watched the video, I made a little short video that had tactical showing the first duck eggs. So this week we got 4 duck eggs. I know, that's so different than when we're getting like 18 duck eggs a day. Well, right now I have about 6 ducks that are laying age or laying capable because they're female. The males don't lay eggs, guys. Just spoiler alert. And they're old. So we're on year 4 or 5 with these ducks. So I don't expect an egg every day. And what I have wanted to do, and the reason we brought in Muscovies is I wanted to hatch eggs with ducks raising the babies. And last year we had a failure. We had some hatch, but we also had a rat infestation from the underworld. And well, let's just say the baby ducks are really good rat snacks. So that didn't work out so well. And then it was the end of the laying season. So hopefully the Muscovies will start laying because right now the khaki Campbells are laying. Muscovies are not yet. And then we can get them to nest up and hopefully raise some babies here. If not, I will incubate them. I did just give my incubator away to somebody who's going to start a bunch of chicken eggs. And that's only because I'm going to get a different style of incubator going here. And I thought, well, it's another homesteader who lives near me who wants to raise her chicken eggs. So use this and hopefully she will, maybe I can get some eggs from her when I'm low on eggs. Luckily, somebody from our network, speaking of the community, somebody from the network gave me a dozen eggs. So I have chicken eggs and I have 4 duck eggs. Today at lunch, we will be having scrambled eggs, which I can totally chew with this tooth, and probably some venison breakfast sausage. That's my plan. We usually don't eat breakfast here. Oh, I forgot to take my, yeah. Anyway, we don't do breakfast here. We usually do a nice breakfasty lunch and then dinner. We usually eat 2 meals a day unless something's going on that's weird. But that's just because I did carnivore-ish January, lost about 6 pounds, and I'm continuing ketovore this time. But what happens when you transition completely into that lifestyle is you're just not hungry at certain times of day. And my theory is not hungry, don't eat. Okay. We got a new paddock going for the sheep. So there's 16 acres that we run the sheep on next door. And it's funny because the sheep we got should have been the right number for my homestead, which is about 3 acres. But I was like, just in case, we'll have them next door because my pasture isn't dialed in here, right? And we're working on that with the sheep. They're helping us do that. And so we put them next door, and then as you all know, it did not rain here for about 4,000 years. And so we weren't growing grass this summer. Like former summers had to mow twice a week to even keep it, low enough that we didn't have a tick problem. And it just didn't grow. And so we ended up using all of it. My place between here and there, the place across the street, the place next door. And I had one more neighbor willing to let me go on his 20 acres if I had to. We didn't get to that one. So it's kind of funny because there were 2 paddocks on the place next door. So it's like the super steep grade, like so steep that if you're driving the 4-wheeler up in certain places, it flips over. Ask us how we know because it did once. So at the very, very, very tip top, they hadn't been yet. And now the paddocks are ready up at the tip top or almost ready. So now we've pretty much got that whole area planned out, and it will be cleared enough by the sheep that it's easier to rotate over there. And that's the thing about sheep that I didn't realize before I got them, which is why I had goats, which are harder to manage than sheep. Sheep will eat almost everything a goat does. They will help you clear an area. And I always thought they only ate grass, but they do browse. And goats eat more of the underbrush, but sheep eat a lot of it, and they really do help you clear the land. So that's kind of cool. We're getting ready to order chickens. There's two things going on. One, we're going to put in a set of combo meat and egg birds called breasts chickens. I think that's how you say it. BRESE, I think is how you spell it. And they will be down in an area where they do not free range my property, so that they don't rip all my stuff out that I put in that chickens want to rip out. And we're going to do sort of the victory garden style, where they're on one side one year, they're on the other side next year. And on the side where they were, we will grow crops that we need for our livestock, like pumpkins and whatnot. Why do we need pumpkins? Because pumpkin seeds are supposed to help keep them worm-free. So it's just something you can augment their diet with, pumpkin seeds. And then pumpkins are delicious. I eat them sometimes. I don't know. Pumpkins, squashes, that's probably what we're growing over there. Can't promise until we do it, though. Like, famous last words on my podcast is, I'm going to grow pumpkins. And then you come over and you're like, why is there corn? Yeah, that could happen too. Probably won't be, but it could happen. Anyway, we may grow some wheat down there too, just to start getting some grains for the chickens. Don't know. Whatever grows, right? So we're putting those in, but we're also going to get a run of meat birds. I'm doing a different breed of meat birds this year that grow slower than, like, I've always gotten the female jumbo Cornish cross, and I get them because they grow slower, and it's because all my other options are out by the time I order birds. And this time I'm ordering them soon enough to have birds. And then at the end of raising those out, we will have our chicken processing workshop like we do every year. So just getting the foundation for that ready. Next segment is grow. And this is where we talk about what we are doing to get ready to grow our vegetables, food, whatever. So I promised last week I would get at least one garden bed done. I got 2 done. And we don't have wood chips, but I did reach out to a friend and say, hey, can I borrow your truck and get wood chips? Because we don't have a truck here right now, because Tactical's truck has been broken for a year. My truck blew a head gasket, and that's it. So that's happening. And we basically will have to go hand scoop the chips. Now, I have been trying to get Chip Drop or the electric company or somebody to drop them here like they used to every 2 years, but they haven't been through, haven't found anybody. The arborist has not been by. So it is what it is. I have resigned myself to, I'm going to have to go pitchfork some chips if I want the kind of wood chips that work best as mulch, and I do. So that is on the to-do list. And then I have, instead of wood chips on that garden, I have cardboard just to keep the weeds from coming. And it's rained so much that it's wet cardboard. So if I get the wood chips over there soon, I will probably take the cardboard off because it will not disintegrate in time, but don't quote me on that. I might leave it there because if I'm only doing like tomatoes and peppers and basil and whatnot on that particular spot, I can just cut through the cardboard, put it in, and it actually keeps the weeds from coming. So got those 2 beds ready. I've got one more bed to prepare, and it looks like the weather will let me do it this week on Sunday. I also plan to go swim laps on Sunday, so it just depends on the timing. But once that bed's done, that's fine. And then my bed that we had a homestead boot camp person come, and I showed her how to put garden beds in where you don't have a garden bed using the lasagna mulching system. And that one has been in since, I think, August, September. Like, it's just been ready to go. And I didn't plant anything in it in the fall. So that one is ready for me to now plant in. So I'm going to get some of my really early spring seeds in that area. I need to put some trellising up and also think about making sure that I can walk around it and we're not going to get a bunch of weed growth. So I'll probably put cardboard around it and cedar wood chips on top of the cardboard. That's been my go-to, which means I need a dump truck full of cedar wood chips, which I knew I needed anyway. There's lots of, I like to use those in pathways because they smell good. And they don't disintegrate or mulch into the system as quickly as the kind of wood chips I will use on my actual garden beds, which are just from trees from the area, right? And a lot of people freak out about, oh my goodness, I'm going to mess up my pH with the cedar wood chips or whatever. I've never had negative stuff like that happen with them. I've just used them in pathways and they're fine. And the pathways are like right by the beds where I plant the food. So I think maybe that's an over dramatization, or if you're using cedar wood chips that have a coating on them that's a weed deterrent, that might actually be a problem because it's a chemical. I just get straight up cedar wood chips from the cedar processing plant down the road, and they have coated ones and not coated ones, and I get the not coated ones, and I've just never had a problem. So that's it. And then the early spring flowers are starting to poke up. So we've got like daffodils. I haven't seen my tulips poke up yet, but daffodils are poking up and crocus are poking up. And I have saffron crocus up on the hillside. They've been up since the fall. They like kind of were sad when it got really snowy and cold, but they're still there. So that's really cool to see. In fact, one of my daffodil plants already has like a flower shape on it. It's, you know, like the little bump that's going to open and turn into the flower. So that's super exciting. What usually happens is my daffodils open and then it gets cold the next day and freezes and they go whoop. So if I know it's happening, I pick them and I put them in a vase on my table because, you know, I'd rather have them outside looking pretty, but if they're just going to get beat back by the frost anyway, I'll bring them inside and enjoy them inside. That's sort of my perspective on that one. So last week, I promised I would start my seedlings by the 1st of February, and I know you're going to be shocked to hear this. Nicole Sauce did not start her seedlings. Yeah. So for realsies, by the end of this weekend, the peppers need to be started. And that's why if you look at my 3 things, it's declutter the seedling area. That's because I've had herbs drying there that I never finished putting in jars. And I have like a bag of seeds that I plan to plant this year. And I have seeds that I collected that are drying there. By our drying, I mean they're dry and not in packages. So once I take care of that, I can set my heat mats out, keep my lights on the timer, and actually start the seeds I want to start. And, you know, it's going to be 7 days past where I wanted to start the peppers. Not a big deal. I will still have peppers by the end of the season. That 7 days in this climate is not a big deal. It can be a little bit fussier if you're in a colder climate with a shorter grow window. But part of why I was happy to put that off was that I knew I could catch up later. And then I'll be starting tomatoes right around the 1st of March. I think. I might wait till mid-March. What I've noticed is now that I use the crack key hydroponics for growing my seedlings, is tomatoes used to take several weeks more to be ready to transplant than they do in the crack key system. So I start them crack key, I get the root development, I transplant them into soil, let them get established there, and then I move them to the soil outside, or I put the ones I don't harden off in the soil, I'll put in the hydro system out front. So all of that's really coming fast. Like I'm looking at our timeline and I'm looking at what we have to do. And this is so springtime on the homestead, you're like, I'm going to have a garden. It's never going to have a weed the whole time. And everything's going to go great. And I'm going to keep up on hand picking the pests off and whatever it is. That's where we are right now, except for I already know what's coming. And I know I'm going to have to make choices with my time. And I know that means that some of these things are not going to make it. But right now, it's like I start all the things. And then I observe what's going to do best. And I give that more support if I can. And I observe what do I really like to have. Like tomatoes, I love tomatoes. And some years are easier tomato years. Last year was a fairly easy tomato year, right? Here. And so that was great. But what if it's a hard tomato year? Well, I love tomatoes, so I'm going to keep trying with the tomatoes. I got a tomato plant on my windowsill in my kitchen. It's 2 years old now. It just does. Every so often, I get a little cherry tomato off of it. And that's just life on a homestead. And I used to get really distressed when it was like the cabbage worm invasion of 2016 killed all the cabbages, all the broccoli, and all of the cauliflower, right? I used to get really upset. And then I realized when I looked back in my journal of what does well and what doesn't do well, it's like there's a cycle, and it's the year of the cabbage worms, or it's the year of the okra. Okra does really well this year, doesn't do well next year. It's the year of the corn. Corn did really well this year, doesn't do well next year. It's the year of the we had the year of the tomato last year. It was the year of the tomato. Tomato did really well. I'm going to get to the point where fresh tomatoes are coming off the vine this year. And I'm still going to have canned tomatoes from last year. In fact, I just used the last of my frozen tomatoes. I had some frozen tomatoes I was going to can this winter, and I was like, screw it. I'll just throw them straight in stews and not can them and not waste the energy because I'm making a stew and I want tomatoes in it. So it's interesting how that is. And if you embrace that cycle and don't get too caught up in the mindset of I must save this one plant that's just getting decimated by whatever is hitting it. Maybe you have a bunch of locusts or I don't know what hitting a squash bugs. Squash bugs are the bane of my existence. If you don't get too caught up in that and you know what to do with the surplus of the other things doing well, everything works fine. And usually I have enough food put up by the end of this. Last year was not the year of the green bean. I planted so many green beans last year, like the seeds, and then got hardly any. And I just kept planting them every week or two. And one of those plantings actually did okay. And the rest of them, it'd be like a whole row, and I would get this little handful of green beans. The only reason I had green beans set up is that other farmers also who had problems also had the problem where all of their green beans were ripe on the same week and they couldn't sell them all. So I got a really good deal on their surplus and I canned it. And that's okay. This is why we have community, guys, right? You have community, just like Ryan said, we need to have community because I might have a great carrot year and you might have a great green bean year. And we can be like, woo, I've never had a great carrot year in the history of carrot years, just for the record. Maybe in Oregon I did, but not here. Carrots have not been liking it here. And I haven't put the time in to set up a carrot bed that has better drainage for them. Have not cracked the carrot code in Tennessee. Full confessions of a homesteader. Next segment is, speaking of community, holler neighbors and community. We had a great time doing game night last weekend, and we're halfway through a mystery, which was really funny, and just lots of giggles. If you were paying attention on social, I put out a picture of Nighthawk and I really concentrating on trying to figure out the mystery. We didn't before we got too tired, so we're going to do another round at some point. The bigger community, though, this is something I was on the phone with somebody yesterday, and she was talking about how she likes being tapped into the community and how important that is and wants to support the community. And it's somebody who's recently moved to Tennessee. And I got to thinking about their journey on the homestead because about a year ago, they started this process of finding a homestead, buying a homestead, starting a homestead for the first time in their lives. And they had some skills because they had done vegetable gardens and raised poultry and other stuff, but more in a suburban setting or an urban setting and not so much in a homesteading scenario. And they came down here, and because we knew them and they had been working actively awesome participants of the LFTN network, there were introductions made to people who could help them, like the homestead consultant, like Strong Root Resources, like all of these people. And over the last 6 months or so, they were like, she said, I bought my homestead and it had perimeter fencing. They're like, we don't have to do that much. It's kind of a plug and play thing. Go. And she's like, we have had to replace every single stretch of fence on this homestead, right? Yeah. Cards Against Humanity as a blind lady is really funny. I bet that is. So even when you think you're getting something that's plug and play, sometimes you get into it and you're like, wow, there's all this stuff that while it technically works, I don't know that it really works. And so she, they tapped into those resources, got a plan for their homestead, put a lot of work in on finding exactly what they want for their life. Because that's the thing about a homestead plan is I can give you a homestead plan for you, and then if I tell you to raise a bunch of food you don't like, it doesn't make sense. So you really have to be involved in what really makes sense for me and my family, right? Or me and my community, or just me if you're alone. And if you don't insist on the things you want, then you end up with a homestead you hate. If you get into something you thought you'd like and you don't like it and you don't stop it and pivot, then you also end up with a homestead you don't like. So this whole notion of don't give up, yes, if what you need to do to be successful is push something through something, and you can do that, push through and don't give up. If you're pushing through to do something you hate, though, totally pivot to something you love. Very important to come into your homestead with that mindset, because I used to think I wanted milk goats and I don't want milk goats. True story. But I love the sheep. And it took me 15 years of denial. I had denial to know that sheep were actually a really good fit. And so far, like we're almost a year in and I don't regret the sheep. They've been a lot of work. They've been a lot more work than the goats ever were because of how we brought them in and when we brought them in and what the weather did. Is what it is. But I don't regret it at all. Also, Tactical did most of the work, so I didn't get all the pain that he got. So he may have a different perspective, but I'm pretty sure he does. You can ask him when he comes on later. But back to these people, they are now adding bigger livestock to their homestead and livestock guardian dogs, and their fencing, as I said, had to be redone. But as a result of adding livestock guardian dogs, they really wanted to add electrical fencing. So Tactical went out and spent a couple of days putting in fencing with them. And that's the community at work. And while he was there, he was like, there were all of these other community members just coming in and out that day. And he realized how much the community is centering around their homestead as well, which is really cool. And I wanted to share that story because as you involve people in projects like that, you get more people coming around. They want to see what's up. Like we have this chicken coop build happening, and I'm trying to figure out how can people participate in that without getting in the way, just to learn from it. And what probably will happen there is we shoot video and produce a video of it, because it's not something where having a class of 25 people will get it done in one day. It's a several weekend thing. So long commitment for that. But anyway, that's my thought on the wider community. Self-Reliance Festival is coming. And if you've been looking to interact with homesteaders and people who are preparedness-minded in person, it is well worth the $75 early bird special price to go there. Those tickets are at selfreliancefestival.com. I have had some people have trouble buying their tickets because Stripe has decided they don't like them. They don't like their card for whatever reason. And I'm able to manually help you if you run into that problem. I am going to actually add, I didn't want to do this, but I'm going to add PayPal as a second payment option to the website by the end of the weekend, just because I don't know what's up with Stripe, but it's also happening on my Hollow Roast site. Hollow Roast has 3 other ways to pay, so it doesn't matter. Self-Reliance Festival, I was like, I'm going to keep this simple and have all the revenue through one thing. So when I do the end of event report with John, we can, like, it's all one place. Now it got more complicated, but that's my life. Luckily, QuickBooks hopefully can sort through all that for me. But Self-Reliance Festival is coming. There's a biochar presentation. I'm really excited about that because I'm interested in doing some biochar stuff here. And I think it can add a lot of benefit to some of my more challenging areas on the homestead. We're adding a lot of some of these hands-on things right now. So just keep that in mind. It's a great place to meet people. We often have it happen that somebody's from Louisiana and they're like, there's nobody near me. And somebody's like, I'm from Louisiana. And then they talk and then they go to Louisiana and they start a Freedom Cell or they start their own homesteader group. And I always think that's cool when that happens. So, I mean, it was so funny. I was talking to somebody yesterday from New Jersey who's like, nobody from New Jersey's there. And then she goes, except Lou. So like literally there was somebody from New Jersey and there were other people from New Jersey and they all got to know each other. It was pretty funny. There's also a community solar panel purchase going on, a shared buy. If you are in the LFTN Freedom Cell, serving Tennessee and Alabama mostly. And to get in the Freedom Cell group, go to Telegram. It's t.me / probably LFTN. Let me look. t.me / LFTN cell. Go there, join in, get your order in today. The order's going in today. Like basically, if it's Saturday and you're hearing this, you're too late. That doesn't mean there aren't other ways to get really good prices on used solar panels through hackmyhomestead.com. But that one's happening right now. He said he's ordering 4 pallets of them right now based on what everybody in Tennessee and Alabama has put in. So I think that's pretty cool too. And that's why we interact with each other, guys, right? Because then you have Sean Mills who's like, I found a steaming deal on some solar panels. Next segment is infrastructure. This is where we talk about what we're putting in place on the homestead. And I feel like you're always building something on the homestead or fixing something or rebuilding something. We will talk about fixing in a second. At this point, the property next door with the 16 acres, it's clear enough that Tactical is starting to map out the paddocks for the year and put in semi-permanent fencing. What does that mean? Well, we don't own the land, so stretching fencing that would be on us is not a super attractive idea. So he's putting up sort of a semi-permanent fencing structure to make it easier to rotate the sheep and keep the LGDs in. And he's going to make a video about that, just what he's doing for those of you who face a similar issue. Because on my homestead, stretching fencing around the perimeter totally makes sense financially because it keeps the 2-legged people out and the 4-legged predators out. And that's kind of a good thing. Next door, though, because we don't own it, it's hard to justify putting that in. And then what happens if 3 years from now that lease goes away? Well, then I've got all that fencing and infrastructure up there. So it's always that balance of what makes my life easier fencing wise versus how much does it cost? And I'm just going to leave that money there when I leave. So he'll talk about what his solution for that is. At my place, the top wire, which is the wire that feeds different zones of my homestead for electricity, for electrical fencing, for the sheep and goats, that is complete now. And that was not supposed to be complete yet, but it went on a jump start because there was some escaping happening. So yeah, now it's done. It happened really quickly. So that's what's going on with infrastructure. And of course, we are apparently Steve has yet another design for the chicken coop palace that's being built here. And maybe he'll share that on the Holler Neighbor part of this live stream. Final segment for today's show is finances. This is where we talk about the money. And this time of year, as a homesteader, you start feeling like, I ain't got no money. I ain't got no money. Unless you were smart and you started that microgreens business and you're selling to restaurants through the winter. This is not the most profitable time of year for us, or you're a pig farmer and you're selling all your pigs right now. So the other thing that we're facing right now is every vehicle except for my car is broken. That's not like, understand, this means 3 trucks are broken and 2 4-wheelers are broken right now. That's 5 things. And my lawnmower, my riding lawnmower is broken. It's the easiest repair out of all of those. So 6 things are broken and they're all really old. And so Tactical and I are starting a discussion right now that I actually wish I had recorded this morning about old shit, because old shit breaks. And I was like, listen, everything's old here, including my car, which is an 07. It's not super old, but that's kind of old for a car or, SUV. And I'm like, it's going to break too. I have just scheduled a guy to look at it for maintenance who knows about that car. But I mean, it's not out of scope that it would have something very big go wrong with it in the next 12 to 24 months. So I said, what would happen if we got newer stuff? And we started having a discussion. He's like, well, I know how to fix everything that I have. And that's why I have those things. And as you get into more modern stuff, you have computers and other things that make it really hard to fix them. And I was like, yes, but when you get new things, they don't break right away. And so we went around and I said, what I think we need to do is you don't necessarily need to get rid of all the old stuff, but let's talk about having some new stuff in the mix so that it's not like everything is broken at once right now. Parts are hard to find. It's expensive to get the parts when it's all at one time and nothing works and we're really frustrated. And he was like, this is a conversation for later, but I see where you're coming from. So we will see. We will see if that happens. But I think it's time to get some newer equipment here as part of the homestead plan, because even if a newer four-wheeler is like $4,000 or $5,000, right? That might be worth it if it's up for 11 and a half out of 12 months out of the year. And, you know, I look at those old Massey Ferguson tractors that everybody can fix and they're tanks and they go on forever and ever and ever. And I think that's really cool. Except for the part where you have to fix them every dang time you get on them. I had a tractor like that. I sold that tractor for junk because I was like, I can't fix this every time I need to do anything, right? Now, this doesn't mean new equipment doesn't fail, right? Because it does. But at this point, I'm kind of over it. I'm over things being broken all the time. And I'm looking at if we have a list of what we need on the homestead, which we will need to make, you know, let's say a four-wheeler, a decent lawnmower, and a decent truck that's not broken all the time. Those are the three things I'm thinking we need. We may add a skid steer or something of that nature long term. But those three things, like immediately, really helpful. And the four-wheeler is so we can go up that steep hill with loads of things for the sheep, like the battery for the fence charger that keeps it going, for example. So if I think about those three things, and I think there are, you know, all of these things on the homestead, which of those three things is the one thing that's most important to think about getting a new one? And then with that in mind, how much is a new one? And it doesn't have to be like brand new off the line, although that would be great. It could be a couple years old and somebody was like, I wanted the homestead. I tried the homestead. I hated my life. I'm selling it, or whatever. That happens all the time. Or I've lost my job, so I'm selling things I don't actually need. And the four-wheeler or the truck is one of them. So to get that list and then get the number, and then just like I did with my truck tires, there was a jar in my kitchen that every time I had a little extra, I put money in that jar, and it was for my truck tires. My SUV does not need tires right now, but it's going to need tires in the next year. And when it needs tires, they will cost me somewhere between $800 and $1,200. So I was like, okay, well, I'll get that money earmarked for that because I know it's coming. And I did that. I achieved that goal in about 5 months. And so that is what it is. So basically to start that fund for the next thing in the homestead so we can have a better balance between breaking all the time old and newer, so not breaking all the time, but harder to fix. Like if it does break, we may have to send it to a mechanic and not fix it ourselves. That tension, guys, is not unusual. And that is why I unabashedly want to earn more on the efforts we're doing here on the podcast and at Hollow Roast Coffee and at Self-Reliance Festival. Because if we generate income and we have a good financial foundation, then it's less frustrating when things break and need to be repaired or when things go wrong. That's why we're all building prosperity, right? We want to see the whole community do better. That's why we always have somebody at every event talking about the business side, the money side. Unabashedly, it's okay to make a profit, right? We've got, at this time at Self-Reliance Festival, Bear is coming in and he's going to talk about what's made him successful as a CEO. That's not what he usually talks about, although he has a pretty cool series on YouTube about that right now. He's going to talk about that. You're going to see Tag, who's talking about building his off-grid life. But if you're smart and you're looking for somebody who can give you good advice on how to be successful financially, Tag would be another good one to talk to. John Willis is a good one to talk to. One of the cool things about these events is you get access to people who are willing to share with you what they've done to be successful. In fact, this week I went on Jack Spirko's show to talk about my journey as a 5-year overnight success. Am I independently wealthy right now? No. Am I worried about the fact I just had to put $1,800 into my mouth on Monday? No. Because I have the cushion for that. I was saying online, it's like, well, there goes, gonna have to refill the emergency fund. And people are like, oh, that's a bummer. I'm like, no, that's what it's there for, right? I have a medical fund that got like completely nuked in December. But I have the emergency fund. Both of them will get refilled. It's part of the process of planning for those things that we need. So I'm really looking at finding a better balance between that tension. And I'm really looking for, if you're hearing this and you're like, I feel like I'm never going to get ahead. I saw somebody on YouTube today, like really upset, but she's like, but I'm going to make it. I feel like I'm going to make it. Yes, you're going to make it when you choose to make it. And sometimes along the way, you will have one of those years where it's like you get punched in the nose 19 times. But if you have set your course and you stay the course through that turbulence, you get to the other side eventually. And then things start coming together. Like in 2021, I had, like, my mom, it was so funny. I would be like, so mom, this other really expensive thing just happened, and she was like, oh, do you need help? I was like, no, I don't. And I don't want help because it's my job to get through it. And if I ever need help, I'll let you know. But like, I feel like this is just testing my resolve to always put, 10% of my income in that savings account and to pay down the debt and to build the businesses, right? So I just keep sticking to it as best I can. And sometimes that means it's a little uncomfortable. Sometimes that means I cry. Sometimes that means I scream. Sometimes that means I go on my podcast and I do a really great motivational podcast that gets you guys charged up. And it's because I'm reminding myself, right? I'm reminding myself to stay the course. Anyway, that's a long thing on the financial part of the homestead. We can make money on our homesteads. We can make money on our homesteads. All we have to do is decide we are making money on our homesteads and figure out what that looks like, right? And part of making money on my homestead is avoiding that I have, like, a lot of our food comes from the homestead, and I just basically don't have the grocery bills other people have. I just don't. I do have feed bills, though. I'm working on those next. If I can lower that feed bill, that feed bill is my grocery bill. So the lower that feed bill is, the better off I am. Anyway, that's all of my thoughts today on the homestead update. I do want to remind you, if you are homestead or freedom minded and want to get involved with a really cool community online, go to freesteading.com, join us there. We're starting to get a little more activity as I've started to say this on the regular. freesteading.com. It is a free speech platform. It's got a lot of homesteaders, off-grid folks, and some preppers, and we have a good time over there. So check that out. If you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollowroast.com. 2, consider becoming a member. Membership is over at livingfreeintennessee.com. I do webinars on the regular over there. In fact, we have one coming up on February 26th at like 6 p.m. and tactical, you should be lurking soon if you're going to come into this. It's the My 3 Things webinar. There will be a workbook. We're doing an hour overview of My 3 Things. I will probably try to upsell you on something else to make my life profitable, but it's over there, livingfreeintennessee.com to sign up, and I hope to see you there. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week. Alrighty, guys, I'm ready to take your questions. We've got Steve O with background noise. That's some seriously aggressive typing I just heard.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you doing? You're on a bit of an internet delay for some reason, so okay. I'm not sure what's up with that. But you're a tech guy, so maybe you can figure it out. Freesteading is kind of cool. I'm enjoying it so far. Yeah, it's nice because you don't have a lot of haters on freesteading.com yet. So that is what it is. We're still running a Massey from the 1950s. Yeah, again, those Masseys, they go for a long time. They go for a really long time, and they are fixable because there's not much that can break. It's kind of like I have a coffee grinder from the 40s that it's a Hobart, I think is the brand, and I used that for a long time in my business, and I actually should sell that. But it's an old-fashioned one. It works great, and the only issue is it's a little slower than my new commercial coffee grinder, and so I decided to upgrade. But that thing, like, there's not much that it's like. It's got a motor. You plug it in, it goes. Zzz, don't put your fingers in there because it'll grind those up too, I'm sure. But it works great, and it's it's from the 40s. It also weighs about 4,000 pounds. It probably weighs about 40 or 50 pounds. It's all cast iron. And so really good quality stuff. Okay, Steve says, I have awesome coop redesign suggestion to share with you tomorrow. Do you want to share it now?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay, do you have a picture?
I do.
Will StreamYard let you share your screen? Is there a button?
That says present, so
Yeah, do that. That'll share your
screen.
screen if you want. You can show us.
All right. Okay. Share screen.
Yep.
Now I have a really huge monitor, as you know. So I'm going to try to do just a window.
1 is none and 2 is 1. Look hard at that before you push a Hobart out the door. Yeah. I'll probably just get a second one. I added it for you. So there you go.
So you can see the screen now?
Yeah. So we can all see the screen. So what's up with this chicken coop?
Well, so this is the one that the last one we had discussed. I guess we're still kind of trying to decide on whether the coop will be placed in the middle or...
No, we're not. We already decided.
It's on the outside now?
No, I said middle.
Oh, you said middle. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that changes my drawing again. Anyway.
No. So tell me your idea, because maybe I'll change my mind again.
Yeah.
Tactical, come in and say hi.
Don't worry, she'll change her mind 4 or 5 more times.
Right, probably.
I'm an iterative thinker.
Well, so this is what we had discussed last time with having just one people door and stairs, and then a ramp on either side. So, if run 2 is active this year, we have a fencing underneath. So that way they have full access to this one while you grow your pumpkins or whatever over here, and then next year vice versa. All right, so I had this what I thought was a really good idea, particularly if we put it on the edge of the pasture. So with this,
Tactical got to you, didn't he? He was like, "Listen, we need an edge designer. I'm going to kill her." Okay, go ahead.
The reason why I kind of like the idea of putting it on the edge is because over here at base camp on the coop, I'm every morning when I go out there and refilling waters or whatever, I'm like slipping on mud and stepping in chicken poop and all that. Okay. So by having it on the edge of the pasture like this, where you have a fencing underneath to keep them from getting out, one people door and one ramp. And instead, now this is not to scale, of course, the chicken coop versus the pasture, but by having hardware or welded wire fencing or something, a T-post right here in the middle, a T-post here, and then 1 year we can have the fencing go with a solid line, so they'll have access to the entire underside of the coop and run number 1. And then next year we just move the T-post over to here, move this T-post over to here. We just basically keep the maybe not submerge the T-post fully, with the blade fully in the ground.
Oh, no. Okay, so that's not a problem on this pasture.
Right.
The bigger issue is a T-post might fall over because the soil is that good.
Okay. Well,
right, Tactical?
Block, right.
Like you can just pull them out.
Right. I mean, even if you use have it, in a cinder block or something. But point is, doing this kind of design where you just move the fencing to the other side of the coop, then they'll have the entire underside of the coop and this side of the run. So, and still, we're only left with one ramp, one stairs. You get in here, you can collect your eggs from the inside if you want to, or through a gate on the outside, you can, access the nesting box, on this way. So the gate would have to be like in between the fencing and the nesting box so you can kind of get in. But this way you have only one ramp and they have full access to the underside of the coop all the time.
Okay.
Because we have 21 chicks over here and they're under there all the time. They love it under there. If we do divide the fence, have the fence with two separate ramps, like on this drawing here, there will only have access to half of the underside of the coop. So a lot more crowded. I'm not sure how many chickens you want to end up having, but I have 4x4s underneath this coop here at base camp, and they're roosting under there, all the time when they're not out feeding or whatever. This is a lot simpler design. Plus, you're going to save a few $100 by not buying another chicken door, not creating another ramp, not creating another doorway, not creating another stairs. You'll save some money, and it's very simple to go from being able to use one run versus being able to use the other run the next year just by lifting up 2 T-posts and moving the fence to the other side of the coop.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
And you step, the steps here in the chicken coop, are covered in chicken poop because, I kind of have this kind of set up here where the coop is in the middle of the pasture. So we're always stepping in there, and then we have to keep our shoes outside, of course, because we don't want to track that, inside or on a porch or anything like that. But with this kind of
he
setup
thinks
here,
my shoes don't have poop on them on the regular around here. That's cute. That's cute.
Yeah, but
I free range ducks, dude.
Yeah, but the other thing I really like about this setup is you will end up with, like, whether you use half, whether if you have this kind of setup here where they're only using half, there's not going to be any grass growing underneath the coop anyways, because what they have access of, even the other side, because of there's not going to be, you might have, depending on the position of the coop exactly, you might have a little bit of grass growing, but there's not going to be hardly any grass growing at all. So it's going to end up being a mud pile underneath. So you will most likely have 6 inches or so of wood chips underneath the coop anyway. So with this, you still have the wood chips, they still get underneath, they still scratch it, and so you're not losing any grass growing space if you do this design, because you're not going to get much grass growing under the coop anyways.
Right. Makes sense.
So that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm thinking. This layout here on the edge of the coop, stairs are outside, so you have a little bit of fencing underneath the coop here so they can't get out. The only drawback is that you have to keep the door closed at all times, of course, because they can get out. So when you get in to do any kind of work, you got to close the door behind you. But that's it. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. That was easy.
I don't mess around. So iterative. I'm going to talk about iterative thinking for a second here, guys. Every time we do a design here, there is a period of weeks where it's like, yep, this is the design. And then we think about it and other people look at it and they're like, but what about this? And then it gets updated. And then we're like, yep, that's the design. It's happened with the solar project. It's happened with this project. It's happened with the aquaponics project. Like, all of it has been iterative. And that's because as you think about things, you think about, if you take a little bit of time, you realize other issues with it. So I'm going to defer to Steve. Is already dealing with a different design and thinks this is going to be better. I don't see a problem with this design that'll make my life hard. So let's do it. I'm going to learn from your experience and not mess with it. And then Tactical is going to do a little happy dance because he really wanted it on that edge. What he doesn't realize is we now need the excavator out to make me a better path along that fence. Yeah. Anyway, you should have said that into the microphone, but instead you were across the room like a lurking lurker of a redneck.
She's apparently operating under the misconception that I do not always have like a 3 or 4 day list for the excavator. It's just a matter of when he's coming out.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, guys. The only other, what about 2 drop-down chicken door hatch inside the coop, human entrance separate? What about 2 drop-down chicken doors inside the coop?
Yeah, I'm not following.
So K-Bonk, this right here that I'm circling with my, can you see what I'm doing? No, you can't. Can
No,
you take your mouse and circle where the ramp is? Where the chicken ramp is.
Chicken ramp, yeah.
Yeah. So that's where the chickens go out, and it has an automated door for them to come in and out. So I could feasibly go in here. The chickens will go, bah, 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 bah. They'll all run out because they're scared of me, and I could close their door while I do stuff in there and leave the man door open if I was doing anything other than getting eggs. But I don't understand what you mean about two doors. We are planning to put one drop down door there. So if you know, if you have a different suggestion and I didn't understand what you're saying, just put it in the comments. Yeah, K-Bonk says it's a huge issue, old versus new. It is a huge issue. And I understand it because I have a refrigerator that I bought 12 years ago that still keeps food cold. But it has this inexplicable link that is not a blocked defrost port. It's just it just pisses out water sometimes now, and I've gone through everything I can. The drain port is clear when it goes through the defrost cycle. And I think it could be door gasket related. All of the shelves are falling apart in this thing, but it keeps food cold. And I thought that I'm going to get a new fridge. Well, the fridge I just got probably won't last 12 years because the newer fridges are not as durable as the ones that were when I bought that. And if I had bought a fridge in the 80s, it would have lasted like 30 years, right? So that's a tension there. At the same time, if something that's easy to fix is always breaking, you spend a lot of time fixing it, and that's really super frustrating. I'm also getting a bid for a head gasket replacement in the Mighty Max, in the 1986 Mighty Max truck I have, because for the reason that it's old, things will break on it, but that thing will never die unless I do something horrible to it, right? But I kind of want a truck that just starts every time I start it. So that's where that tension is. Anyway, that's my thought. Do you have any thoughts on that, Steve?
No, not really. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Tactical, do you have thoughts on that? You have to do it into the mic if you have thoughts on that. He's slowly getting up, moving towards the mic. I'm making it so I have to be too close to you.
You're talking about buying new?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my issue with buying new is my truck has been in the shop for a year because it's computerized and I don't have the computer to be able to fix it. Otherwise, it would have already been fixed somehow or another. The reason I haven't fixed my Toyota is I kept hoping my other truck was going to get out of the shop, and I wanted to do something different with the Toyota that I'm going to do. But I'm basically writing my Chevy off at this point in time, and I'm just going to fix the Toyota because I can.
Yeah. Yeah, so I understand that. He has a what should be a semi-nice truck that's been in the shop for 1 year. 1 year. And in March, they're getting the part. And I'm skeptical, and so is he, right?
I don't believe him.
Yeah, he doesn't believe him. So it's just like...
It's a Chevy dealership.
It's $15,000 sitting at the shop.
Wow.
So let's talk about, what is that? The sunk what fallacy? The sunk cost fallacy? Where you put more money into something because you already have a bunch of money in and you need to get your value out of it. Sometimes it's time to just walk away. His Chevy isn't there yet, but I have a feeling that if this part doesn't fix it, it's just got there. And now he has scrap metal.
Well, that truck is probably getting sold regardless.
Yeah, it's probably getting sold regardless. But it's either getting sold for scrap or whatever. K-Bonk said he was thinking like an attic ladder drop down. I see. Yeah, K-Bonk says, ouch. Letty says we're going to buy a new fridge, but in-laws have a 20-year-old one they're not using, so that will be ours for the next few weeks. Yeah, those things, man, they're ugly, but boy, do they last. Boy, do they last. I had a Harvest Gold upright deep freeze here when I first moved in that I got for $10. And that thing kept stuff frozen for a long time, and it did finally break. But, you know, Harvest Gold, putting an age on it. It's either just been released as Harvest Gold this year or it's really old. It was the more really old one. Anyway, I don't see any other questions. Steve, how's your week been? Tell us about that.
Just typical, working a lot from the real job.
Yeah.
And Tracy's going to be leaving me this afternoon or tomorrow to go hang out with her friend in Knoxville. So I'll be a bachelor for the weekend. So yeah, so I'm probably going to go help Nighthawk chop some firewood or something. And
we might need to shoot on Saturday instead of Sunday this weekend.
Sure, let's do it.
Hey, tell them about the range you built here.
It's pretty nice.
We have a badass range here now.
Yeah. I have I think 11 targets. 11 pieces of steel up there to shoot, and out to about 50 yards. So we have to get in there and do a little cleanup of some of the brush that's kind of in the way. But yeah, it was a lot of fun last weekend. Looking forward to shooting some more.
Yeah, me too. I decided, because I've been really bad about making time to shoot, that I just every Sunday that I'm in town is shooting day for Nicole Sauce, and I shoot at least 50 rounds. And tactical, and we started this last Sunday. So tactical was because I don't know what to work on. So he's like, "This is what you need to work on." You saw it go down, and I plan to take the tactical response classes and some other. I have some other training things in the works that are out of the state. But I was like, if I don't shoot on the regular, then if I need to shoot, it's like I don't know what to do. I don't have the muscle memory. So I decided to take, we always talk about this. It's like you do what you make time for. And I'm like, I have not made time for that. I've been so panicked about cash flow and building the businesses and building the community and all this stuff and getting these event tickets sold that I haven't made time for something I know I need to work on. And so it's kind of like, you need to exercise. It's like, I know I need to shoot. So we have fixed that. And part of the impetus for that was Steve and Nighthawk putting up a range I can walk to. So the range is in my zone 4, which makes it's like, and I don't have to mess with like, where am I going to shoot? What am I going to shoot? Like all of that. It's done. So thanks for doing that. I'm pretty excited about it.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I got to shoot his gun. That was fun too. Mm-hmm. So I like your gun better than mine right now.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's 6 hour P365 XL.
Yeah,
love it.
So Tactical, what do you want to share about the homestead this week?
Right now, I'm just dealing with the phase of everything breaking. So as soon as we get off of here, I'm gonna go continue cleaning parts up and decide: do I want the part off of this one or this one? Which one's in better shape? And I'm going to make one that's pretty legit.
Yeah, so that was the impetus for the old versus new discussion today. Because yesterday I'm sitting here, and with the tooth thing I talked about at the beginning of the live stream, I'm sitting here and I'm like, it hurts, but I got to get some work done. So I'm working. And I hear ka-tunk. Toom, 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 like stomping in my house, which is not usual. And then I hear toom, 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 toom. And then I hear, Rah! And it was a word with an F that we did. So it was like really loud, the F word. And I was just like, I'm not going to say anything for a second. And I waited about 3 minutes, and then I queued up on Zelle. I'm like, what's the yelling about? And I hear back something about everything breaking. Oh, and he's like, and I'm over it. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to say anything else because he's too mad right now. So I just let it go. And then about an hour later, he was like, this broke, that broke, that broke. And then as I was walking out of your house, the loop on my glove got stuck on your door. Not just like kind of stuck, like really stuck. And I couldn't get out. And then he yelled. So every so often, and I share that story because that's actually what happens on the homestead, right? Like we all go through the point where we just scream. He's heard me do it too from across the homestead, haven't you? You have to be near the mic when you talk on the live stream. You can't just sit in the corner.
That requires me being all the way over here.
You're the one who wanted to come into my studio instead of talk outside where it's nice and toasty, 38 degrees out there.
It might be.
Yeah.
In the sun. Under a magnifying glass.
Yeah, technical mechanical language is @ pound symbol, $, %, %, exclamation point. We all have those moments, guys. And I saw somebody, as I said this earlier, I saw somebody who was having a really bad day or bad time on YouTube, and they were just like, this is what's really going on. And I'm like, it's not bad to be like, this is all my crap. I'm going to give myself some time to sit in this, to get through the emotional part. And now I have to decide what to do and then move on. Totally ignoring your negative feelings sometimes brings them forward. So it is good to give space for that, but don't give too much space to it, because at the end of the day, we still got to get up, move the sheep, feed the sheep, bring them water, get the eggs, feed the chickens, and make some money to pay for all of our lives. So that is what it is. Anyway. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I think we're going to wrap up for the day. Guys, thanks for being on, and we will see you next week. Make it a great week.